Hello, welcome to the Resilient Life Hacks podcast, where we talk about building a stronger spirit, soul, and body so that we can overcome adversity and do what we were made to do. I'm your host, Elizabeth Myers. Thank you so much for joining us today. Please don't forget to subscribe and share with your friends. Today is episode 5, and we're here with our guest, Jennifer Loehding, and she's going to talk to us today about how to beat the toughest obstacles. She's an author and podcast host of the Starter Girls podcast. And I've heard a little bit of her story, and I'm eager to hear more of it, of the health challenges and obstacles that she faced and what she learned in overcoming those. So welcome today, Jennifer. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me here.
Yeah. Do you want to tell us a little bit more of what you're currently doing, maybe that I left out in the intro?
Sure. Yeah. Well, I think you covered it all. You did
Oh,
pretty good.
okay, good.
So basically what I do is, as you said, I'm an author, I'm a coach, and then a speaker. And so I basically help people. I came up with these, and I will say came up with them because they're not things that are rocket science. They're things that we know, but it's things that helped me really survive through a very difficult time in my life. And I kind of put together this program that I teach, which I call the 7+1 habits. And it's really these habits that I have done probably for the past couple years. I did them when I was going through my crisis. I continue to do them today, and they've really helped me, at that time to get through the struggles in my life, but also helped me to have successes in my life. And so I do a lot of coaching working around sabotaging behaviors and these limiting beliefs that we have, which we find really play out in all areas of our lives. And so I'm passionate about helping people get mentally fit so that they can take these tools and techniques and roll them over into all these other areas of their life. So I do that. And then, of course, my podcast, I put a video out today just talking about my whole why about my podcast, because I feel like everything we do is really just an extension of who we are as individuals, right? Mm-hmm. And so my podcast is really about taking ordinary individuals and showing my audience that these ordinary individuals get to live extraordinary lives because of the extraordinary decisions that they make, whether that be getting through a crisis, making a huge business decision, or maybe just changing the trajectory of where they've been going. Mm-hmm. So it's just about helping people be better human beings in my eyes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that thesis of just because we all go through stuff, but mm-hmm. just given that hope that there is something on the other side and we can actually grow and be better through those. Before we get further into your 7 things, can we backtrack a little bit and tell us a little bit about your struggle and the situation that you went through? It started with a dentist visit, is that right?
It did, yeah. So I want to preface this and say that I've always been an active individual, because prior to my health crisis, I wasn't necessarily into eating healthy, but I was into exercising. I'd been an aerobics instructor for years. And so I'd really kind of been in that background of health and wellness. But yeah, in 2012, January of that year, so this coming January is going to have been my 9th anniversary, I walked into a dental office to have a regular dental procedure done. Came out 5 months later, I was diagnosed with a rare nerve condition called trigeminal neuralgia. And so it affects the nerves in your face. It's usually a one-sided event for most people. In my case, it was on the left side of my face. And so the nerves, they stem in the back of the neck, and then they range in the lower jaw, the upper jaw, and then going up above your forehead. And so things as simple as brushing your teeth, putting your makeup on, stepping out into cold air, vibration, talking, chewing, all of these things could set any one of these 3 nerves off at any given time. And so the way I always tell people, if you go and you look it up, like in the Webster Dictionary, they label it a suicide disease because it is so incredibly painful. I would say incredibly, it's awfully painful. And so I spent 4 years wrestling with that, in and out of the doctor's hospital, working with specialists. I went through all the conventionary medical treatments that I could think of to do. It's a very difficult thing to treat. And I had an atypical case, meaning that even with an MRI, they couldn't find anything. There was no compression of a nerve, so they couldn't go in and cut anything. It was really a lot of trial and error. And so things kind of came to a forefront for me in December of 2015. I was a month shy out of my 4-year anniversary. I had at this point financially exhausted myself, physically, emotionally. I talk about, being in that low depression state where, and I don't talk about this loosely, that I always say if there had been something on the table that I could have ended it, I would have ended it. My kids were what were keeping me going at the time. But I was in a very bad place, and I had walked into a doctor's office, and at this point they had, removed my gallbladder. I'd lost a bunch of weight, and I referenced this in my book as though I've never had cancer personally, but that's what I felt. I imagined that was my life because I was in severe pain and I was taking so much medication that I was sick from the medication. And so I went into this doctor's office, came out, and I made a decision that day. And mostly it was because, I always say we make change when we're pushed by pain or pulled by longing, right? And at that day, I was pushed by pain because I walked into that office and the PA said, Jennifer, you're a conundrum. We don't know what to do with you. And so I walked out, and my ultimatum was end it or fix it. I've got to do something. One or two has to happen here because I can't continue. And so I went on a personal journey. I started working with some holistic practitioners, really just started researching, became an advocate for my own health. And kind of, it was one thing led to another, led to another. And ultimately, I tell everybody, the turning point was when I did keto. I ended up doing a ketogenic diet for 22 months. But really, it was the decision. It was the decision I made to take this into my own hands and really get proactive about it. And so 22 months after I started that journey, I was able to successfully get off all my medication, put the nerve pain into remission. And so as of today, I am still pain free.
That is awesome. Congratulations.
Yes.
Yes, what a relief.
Yes.
That is just so hard to go that long with no answers and nothing, at least if there's something you could do. I've had some other struggles, but it's like, even if it's a placebo effect, I'll take it because that's something.
Amen. Yeah.
What kind of encouragement do you have to give to somebody maybe who's going through a long period where there's not healing and there's not answers and life's not getting better? How do you keep going on those hard days?
Oh my goodness. I think that's a resilient question there. And I think that really, I'm a visionary, and I always feel like there's a way out. I always feel like there's another answer. So I think you have to go into this with the idea that you need to explore. You need to just keep exploring and keep exploring. And I'm getting chills thinking about this right now and talking about it, because to me, there were many days when I was in that battle, like I said, that I wanted to end it. There were many days that I was going through that, and I just was like, I can't do this another day. I cannot get up and do this another day. And yet I get up and I do it again another day. And so for me, what I would say to somebody going through that is to keep researching, keep reaching out, keep talking to people, keep exploring, and just keep having faith, knowing there is another way. There is something out there. You just haven't found it yet. There is, if you're in a situation where it's a medical thing, there's something there. You just haven't found the cure yet.
Right. Yeah. So I hear you saying, one, don't give up, keep trying. And two, don't give up hope, because I think that's also, I've wrestled with depression and I don't know that I would call it suicidal thoughts, but there were times when I definitely wanted to be in heaven with Jesus and not here on earth. It wasn't like I thought about harming myself, but
Sure.
I really didn't want to be here anymore, if
Right.
that makes any sense. So I can relate to that, but just that keeping hope alive when there's no reason to keep hoping. I think, suicide is the ultimate loss of hope, of just, I have no other choice but this. And I think more people than we realize are at that point or near that point.
Right.
So I think that's an important thing to bring up. But we probably don't have time to go through all seven. Maybe you could briefly give us your 7 things.
I can give you the list, and we don't have to go
and then pick one or two maybe of your favorites to kind of dig into more.
Yeah. So I call it, somebody asked me yesterday when I met with them, why do I call it 7+1? And the reason I say that is because the 7 are the daily things that you do every day. The +1 is something that you incorporate weekly. And ideally, if you can get that into your everyday life, bingo, you've scored, you're winning life. To me, that's how I feel. And I know, and this is what I tell people, was once you get that +1 at the end, once you reach that one, you're there and you're at a place where you're feeling really good about what you're doing. You're making a difference and having impact. And so they're very simple, nothing hard. I tell everybody, basically my number 1 is to create a to-do list every day. This is one of the things that really helped me keep going, because it keeps you focused. It keeps you focused. Whatever it is you're doing, if it's taking the trash out, whatever it is, it keeps your mind in the game. It keeps you knowing that you're doing something every day. The other one, number 2, I talk about reading and doing positive material, whether that's engaging in reading a book, listening to an audio podcast, networking, wherever you're going to continually keep pouring into your headspace, especially with what's going on now.
Yeah, that's a tough one now, when what a lot of people are ingesting is, negative stuff on the
Uh,
news or on social media or, various places. I think that's critical to make that deliberate daily deposit of positive thoughts.
Absolutely, yes, because you'll get wrapped up in that, and it's a rabbit hole,
For
a
sure.
rabbit hole of negativity, right? Yeah,
Exactly.
so that's that. Number three is affirmations. Of course, we've all heard about our affirmations and the importance of those. Four is meditation or reflection. And then, of course, five, gratitude. I think this is one of the, if I was going to talk about a big one, gratitude, I think is immensely important, especially when you're in that space where if you're in a depressive state, because I joked about this on a podcast recently. I said there was a time when that was a very difficult thing for me to do. And it might have been as simple as I'm thankful for the forks in my drawer,
Mhm.
because there weren't a lot of things I was thankful for at that
Yeah.
time. So gratitude, and then of course health, and then well-being, and then I think I did my seven. They're spread out over seven. But the big one that I really like to talk about is the plus one, and that's the flow. That's the flow. And the flow is basically doing that thing in life that you love to do, that thing that gets you up in the morning and keeps you wanting to go for more. And that's different. And that is a very difficult thing for a lot of people to find, because we're so accustomed to working from a task oriented state of mind. We get up, we go to work, we live for Friday, get up, do this pattern over and over and over. But one of the things I talk about with my people is really just exploring what are those things that you really, really love doing. And sometimes you got to go back to when you were a child and think about what it was when you were a child that lit you up. What
Mhm.
was that thing that just really a quality, a trait, something that you were really gifted at? And how do you pair that up with a passion to create flow in your life? And
Mhm.
flow becomes the thing that bridges that gap between your passion and your gifts, pulling it in. And when you do that, I just think it makes everything so much smoother in life, because you're coming from a place of happiness.
Mhm. Yeah, I love that. That's great, especially how you talk about kind of going back to maybe who we were when we were younger. I think that's critical, especially as mothers. It's so easy for us to lose our identity in our family because, we are serving them all the time. And I was, because I have 8 kids, I think you know that already, but I
Yeah.
was pregnant or nursing or both for 14 years. And when my youngest was 5 and in kindergarten, I kind of picked my head up and go, what happened to the last 20 years of my life? Who am I other than, these people's mom and this person's wife? But a lot of that is true of going back to, well, what did I enjoy as a child? And writing for me was one of those things that I have always been a reader and a writer and an animal lover, and I'm kind of rekindling those things in myself now. And it is, it's that flow of, hey, I was created to do that. Like this is me, this is who I am. And but you can't get at that point. I couldn't get at that point when I was still depressed and still
Right.
struggling, still. So that's why, my message is we need to overcome our adversity. You use the word obstacles, same thing, and then do what we were made to do, or live your purpose. So I really like that.
I think it's a process too. It's not like you can tell somebody just do that one thing and that's going to
Right.
be the answer. I mean, when I think about this journey, I started in network marketing in 1999. I mean, I feel like I've been going on this journey for 20 years,
Mhm.
almost 21 now. I feel like there were all these, if you were to connect the dots and go back and look at all this, I feel like you'll see the patterns where I was morphing into what I needed to do. It's just as I put it to someone the other day, I needed to have my own testimony. I needed to have my own walk through life where I could say, you have the ability, and I say this in my mantra and in my podcast, to change your life any day you decide. Let today be
Mhm.
that day. You have that ability any day. But for me, in order for it to be authentic and be real, and for me to be able to say to people, here I was, here I am, I had to walk that walk. And so I
Mhm.
really feel like, yes, it's a process of putting all these little pieces of the puzzle together until you get to that place. We don't arrive, we're still growing every day,
Oh yeah,
right?
yeah, always.
But you feel like you get to a place where you're like, this light bulb moment goes off, like this just light bulb goes off, and you're like, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. This is
Mhm.
what life is. And I can choose to be happy. Like I can choose to create the destiny or the path that I want if I work towards that every day.
Mhm. Yeah, and I think that was a key mental hurdle for me to get over when I was, deep struggling with depression and with anxiety. It feels like something is happening to me. It doesn't feel like a choice. And, even, sometimes on a day-to-day basis, I'm like, I can't
Right.
help the way I'm feeling, but we can make choices to help us feel better. And, I'm not going to say that I have read some things where it made me feel like the depression was all my fault and all in my head, and I brought it upon myself. And that's not true. So I'm not saying that. And I don't think you are either.
No.
But there are definitely, we do have a choice. And I like that about your testimony of, you, and it's similar to mine, where you get tired of waiting around for somebody else to fix it. And you just took responsibility and said, all right, this is on me. I'm going to find an answer. Yeah. And I love, that determination that you showed in that moment is now blessing so many other people who are struggling and who need to borrow that determination from you so that they can do the same thing.
Thank you. Yeah, something that I was listening to the other day, Tony Robbins, he said, you always have the choice where you focus your energy. And that's something that kind of resonates with me. Even, I'm like you said, I'm not immune to having bad days. I'm not immune to having moments where I feel defeated, or I feel like, somebody's kicking me down in the ground. I mean, just look at the world today.
I was going to say, especially this year.
Yeah.
It's had more than our fair share of opportunities.
Yeah, to get the news on, and you just think, oh my gosh, the world's falling apart, and you're just one person, this needle in this haystack, right? But I think it boils down to, like you said, these techniques that we work on to help us feel better. And I think it's really about being mindful. It's about saying, I don't like the way I'm feeling right now, and I can choose either to continue to focus on this bad feeling, or I can do something to support myself to make me feel better. And that's really where I think we have the power as human beings, is when we become mindful of our behavior and we say, I don't like where we're going, and I'm going to work on me. I'm going to work on me and my outlook today, and we're going to do something different. And that's how I am. I'm a solution finder. I'm a problem solver. I can't dwell on things. Like, I have to move forward. And so being proactive is the best way I know how to solve a problem we can't solve.
Right. For me, that's what that gratitude is in my life, is choosing where I focus. Because I can always find something to complain about, and I can always find something to be grateful for. Like you said, forks, or I use the example of paper clips. No matter how small it is, this year, hey, toilet paper. I have never thanked God for toilet paper so much as I have this year in my life. We're a large family, so we consume a lot of toilet paper. Not hoarding, just there's a lot of bottoms in our house. And, so everything was sold out in the stores, and I was having trouble getting it. And I didn't really mention it to many people, but one day, just out of the blue, this big, huge bag of toilet paper showed up on my door. I've asked all my neighbors and my friends, and nobody will admit to doing it, but I was just so touched, I teared up. And I'm like, this was early on in the whole quarantine thing, but I'm like, a couple of months ago, if somebody had handed me toilet paper, I'd be like, gee, thanks. But now I'm just so grateful. I'm like, somebody thought of me. They sent me toilet paper.
The things we be grateful for. Yes,
I know.
The toilet paper thing too, because there was a time, we went 6 weeks. It's like every time we were stepping in the store, there was no toilet paper.
Yeah,
we're gonna be buying paper towels and all kinds of stuff here pretty soon. So
yeah,
I get it totally.
Right. Yeah, I've thought through issues of self-sufficiency, and if something were to happen, or have an emergency supply of things, and I thought through water and food and all these various. Never in my mind had it crossed me to think about toilet paper. Right? Where do you get toilet paper when the world falls apart?
Yes. Well, thankfully it's back out there now, but we know what people do when they panic, and we know in this country what they do.
Yes. So tell us a little bit more about your book, of what caused you to write that, or how that idea got started, that you wanted to write a book about this.
Absolutely. So the book. Okay. So funny thing, I joked about this the other day on one of my shows, that I'm one of those people, when I say I'm going to do something, if I put it out there in social media, or it goes out there, we're going to make it happen, because I don't want people to come back and say, you said that and you didn't do it. It's like an integrity thing for me. So,
accountability at work.
Yes. So funny story. I had been talking about this book probably for anywhere 6 months to a year. I'd been kind of tossing it out in the air, and I mentioned it, and people are like, yeah, you should write this book. And I'm like, I don't know where to start. We talked about this. You and I talked about this when we were talking about your book. I didn't know where to start. And so oddly enough, I think whatever you think and you put out there, it's like the right people start showing up. So I'm networking, and all of a sudden, all these people start showing up. Publicists, writers, all these people start coming into my life. And so each little, these nudges I'm getting from them, yeah, you should write the book. You should write the book. So oddly enough, I go into this guy's office that at that time I was working in one of my network marketing companies. I was trying to get him to look at this product. He said, yeah, come into my office. So I get in there, and he is a brander. He does social media content, digital marketing. And he's like, Jennifer, you need to get your story on Facebook. You need to brand on Instagram, and you need to write your book. And so I got in the car that day. As soon as I got in the car, I put on Facebook, I'm like, well, I've decided today I'm going to write my book. That was kind of like the defining moment.
Yeah.
Another one of those, when you talk about like those moments that I had, like
Mhm.
when I came out of that doctor's office, that was a defining moment for me. And so the book is basically, it's my story. It's the story that I went through. That's really one chapter, because it's not meant to, I don't want people to feel sorry for me. Obviously I'm not a victim mentality type person. So really the first chapter is just to lay the foundation, tell you, this is what I went through. It sucked. I hope you never have to deal with this in your life. But the next 6 chapters, because it's 7 chapters, the next 6 are really everything I learned going through that journey. I talked about like making decisions and self-belief and the meditation and gratitude journaling and, the diet that I went through and how exercising. I was a big runner during that time. I'm still a runner, but I became a marathon runner during that time. And I used that basically as a diversion technique. It was my way of relocating the pain from here to here
Mhm.
and
I've done
giving.
that with anxiety. It's my anxiety relief. If I'm stressed,
Yes,
I go run it off.
yes, it was my tool. It was my vice. It was the thing that really just kept my head back in the game and kept me moving, going forward. And I don't run near. I was running a lot of mileage back then. I don't run near that
Yeah.
mileage
I'm not
anymore.
running at all right now, but
Yeah, it got me through. So the book's
Mhm.
really just is that story. And I just recently was talking to somebody about possibly doing a 2.0. I have more stuff because I want to add that whole flow section in there and stuff. I learned all that kind of going through it. I just didn't really know what it was.
Right.
How sometimes you go through something, you're not really quite sure what it is you learn.
Mhm.
Like, how do you put a name to that?
Yeah.
So I have a couple other things I kind of want to add to it. And I may here sometime soon try to roll out another version of it. We'll
Mhm.
see.
Or make a sequel.
Yeah. Yeah. If I have enough
Yeah.
content, yeah, I got to pull it
Yeah.
together. That's
Yeah.
the hard part. I got to get it all together.
So I love the picture that's on your cover, and we used it for the
Yeah.
publicity here. But so tell us about that. Like, how'd you come up with that pose? And
Oh my
it looks
goodness.
so fun.
Yeah, that was actually a candid shot. So I had gotten this photographer that I knew to help me. I went to him and I'm like, hey, I need a headshot and I need a a book cover. So we go in there and we take all these great photos, right? And so I mean,
Uh-huh.
there were a lot of them that came through, and that one was an accidental shot that we had done, and it was kind of off to the side of the photo, and it was kind of dark. And he sends that to me, and I'm like, dude, can you do something with this photo? I need you to like center it out, lighten it up, like fix it up. And so
Mhm.
that's kind of become my signature. It's on my
Yeah.
business cards. It's on everything that I send out anymore. It's just it kind of shows who I am. a
Right.
little,
Yeah. Well, that's what I love
less
about
confident.
candid pictures is it's just showing who you actually are, and
Yeah,
I
it's a
think
very
that's why I like
honest
that picture.
picture.
I'm like an amateur photographer wannabe person, but I try to get candid pictures of my family, but I have them trained too well. They turn and smile. And I'm like, no, I'm trying to just keep doing what you were doing. So then it's like some fake pose.
That's so funny. We're the opposite here. Nobody
Yeah.
likes none of my kids like the camera. So I almost have to
Yeah.
sneak those candids because that's the only time.
Right. Well,
we get-
once they become teenagers, then they hide behind their younger siblings and things or go
Yeah,
off camera, but I
absolutely.
try. But so for those who are interested in reading Jennifer's book, I've posted the link in the comments below, or if you're listening to audio, it will be in the show notes, or on YouTube in those notes. So thank you so much for joining us today and sharing these things about your journey and all the lessons that you learned from that. It's amazing to me how we're very different. People had very different challenges to overcome, but there are so many things you said that resonated with me, and I'm like, yes, she gets what I've been dealing with too. And that's so neat that we can just, as semi strangers, just connect and realize that at the core we're both just humans trying to figure it out, and that we can come along and help one another on this journey called life. So
Absolutely.
thank you so much for sharing that and pouring those things into our audience today. I appreciate that. Before we leave, is there any last thing you wanted to add, or any other place where people can contact you or reach out to you?
Sure. Well, first of all, I want to say thank you for having me on here.
Mhm.
And you are so true about that. I think that we all at the heart are trying to survive. And whatever we go through, the ultimate goal is how do we come out victoriously on the other side? And when we can use that story or whatever that is, I believe stories sell. And when we can use that to impact others, then it's a benefit for all of us because it's cathartic for us, but it also helps us help other people make change. So I love that. So thank you for allowing me to come on and do that. And yeah, if anybody wants to learn more about my story or find the podcast, they can just go to jenniferloehding.com, and you've got my name up on the deal.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
jenniferloehding.com takes you to the main page.
Okay. Okay, great. Well, thank you everyone for listening in. We hope that you have enjoyed today's episode. Join us next week. We're going to be speaking with author Ginger Harrington about overcoming anxiety, which is something near and dear to my heart because I struggle with that as well. But again, if you didn't earlier, please subscribe and please share this new podcast with your friends so we can get these messages of hope and victory out to as many people as possible. Because like we just said, we all need a little bit more of that this year. So thank you and God bless. Have a great day.